Good evening. Please make your way to your seats. I would love to welcome you to the Central Texas Fentanyl Education and Awareness Workshop. My name is Melissa Hoskin, and I'm the president of the Round Rock ISD Council of PTAs. On behalf of Hayes CISD and Leander LISD Council of PTAs, we would like to thank you all for being here today. I want to start by thanking Dell Children's Hospital for collaborating with us to host this important event for our communities. We are grateful to Dr. Kate Remick, Dell Children's Hospital. This event would not be possible without the generous donation of this space. Thank you so much. We are thankful to our panelists, their work in this field, and for being here with us this evening. We would also like to extend our gratitude to our vendor fair participants. We also appreciate Dino and his team at the Sharks Burger. I hope you're all enjoying the Sharks Burger, so please go grab one if you haven't had a chance, for coming across town to bring us this delicious burger bar. We also want to thank all of you here in attendance for joining us, and those of you at home who will watch this recorded video. We request that those of you in the audience, please do not record this event on your personal devices. As a reminder, PTA mission to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. To promote the welfare of children and youth in home, school, places of worship, and throughout the community. To raise the standards of home life, to advocate for laws that further the education, physical and mental health and welfare, and safety of our children and youth. To promote the collaboration and engagement of families and educators in the education of children and youth. To engage in the public and united efforts to secure physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being of all children and youth. To advocate for fiscal responsibility regarding public tax dollars and education funding. PTSA is a registered 501c3 association and the largest and oldest child advocacy organization in the United States. PTA prides itself on being a powerful voice for children, a relevant resource for families and communities, and strong advocate for public education. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization and are proud to facilitate this event to our community. With that, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kate Remick.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Melissa. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We do, as Melissa said, have a few requests as we begin the night. First and foremost, as many of you know, this is a sensitive topic. We know some are here from personal experience, some are here to learn, some are here to share, and we just ask that you all please be courteous, patient, and understanding of the diverse perspectives that are in this room, and also when interacting with each other. We also wish to protect everyone's privacy, so again, please do not record the event on your personal devices. We will make sure that there is a video recording available after this event. In addition, I have to read a few other pieces that are specific to Dell Children. So, as a healthcare organization, the inclusion of any items or experiences that could harm the health of our community are not encouraged. In accordance with our hospital campus policies, smoking is not permitted within events. And in line with our commitment to public safety and the avoidance of activities that may cause harm, involving firearms and/or weapons at events is not permitted. Events should also abide by all venue safety regulations. So again, thank you all so much for being here tonight. We have a wonderful panel of experts who are going to share with us all of their knowledge around this particular issue of fentanyl. So first off, we'd like to start with a brief video, and we'll see if I can move us forward. Oh, this should be here. There we go.
I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. Oh, you and I were like this summer, but now it's winter here on my own. If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known, if I would've known, oh, I remember how we would laugh all the time, but now you're not around, and I'm just trying to find something else to fill the empty spaces you left behind. But nothing ever seems to work. I've been thinking about the things that you used to say, even not around. You're in my head every day, but it's fine, I don't mind. I promise I'll be okay. If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known, if I would've known, oh, oh, oh.
Right. Thank you for that powerful video and for sharing that with us. So many lives lost, and that's why we're here today, is to really talk about how we can prevent more lives lost and come together and grow awareness around this. I'd like to start with each of our panelists, if they could please introduce themselves. And Becky White, I'm going to start with you with A Change for CAM. If you could just take 90 seconds to introduce yourself and a little bit about your organization.
Thank you for having me. My name is Becky White, and I am the founder and executive director of A Change for CAM. I lost my 19-year-old son, Cameron, to fentanyl poisoning on March 20th of 2021, so we're coming up on 3 years. And once toxicology came back from the autopsy and we realized what it was, I knew almost immediately that I had to do something. I couldn't just sit and be a mom who did nothing. I have a voice and I can speak and am comfortable speaking, and realized this is a drug that is like no other. So I specifically created A Change for CAM to do exactly what I'm doing right here. And I give presentations to students, parents, communities, anybody who will listen, because you don't want to be sitting up here in our chairs. You're going to hear from another mom, and trust me, you don't. And you always hear every parent's worst nightmare is getting that call, and it is. But if you can do something about it, these deaths are 100% preventable, and that's through education. So it's our hope today, or my hope at least, that you guys walk away from this today with knowledge and be equipped with tools and resources to know what to do and how to have conversations in the future. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Janelle Rodriguez with Forever 15.
Hi, I'm Janelle Rodriguez, and like Becky here, I lost my 15-year-old son, Noah, in August of 22. Hayes County. in the summer of 22, we lost a lot of students. And my son happened to be the last one that summer. So because I was Noah's #1 fan and just always an advocate in his life, there was no way I was going to let his death be in vain. So as a project, I now started the Forever 15 project in Noah's honor, and we travel nationwide with a presentation. We've partnered up with our local sheriff's department, and we travel together with these presentations. We are now going international in a couple of months. But if I had knew what fentanyl was, if I had the opportunity to sit in at a parent presentation like you are, I could have warned my son. And so it's my goal, my mission, to spread as much awareness as I can and to help as many students as I can. We get tons and tons of children reach out to us, and we've been able to send some to rehab and mental health facilities, Suboxone treatment, whatever help looks like for their particular situation. We won't tell anyone no. So even if it's not a young person, if it's an adult, we're not going to turn you away because this drug is so powerful. And no family, no mom should ever have to say goodbye to their child. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tyson Hodges.
Good afternoon. My name's Tyson Hodges. I am a retired DEA Assistant Special Agent in Charge here in Austin, Texas. I'm currently Task Force Commander for the Fentanyl Overdose Response Team, which is based in Williamson, Hayes, and Travis counties. I actually have two roles. In addition to being on the law enforcement side of the house, I'm also one of the co-founders of Operation 360, which I think you've seen outside. And Operation 360 is a partnership between law enforcement, the U.S. Attorney's Office, District Attorney's Office, and other school and community outreach programs such as Change for CAM and Forever 15. The goal of Operation 360 is to bridge that gap between law enforcement, prosecutions, and our social services groups.
Thank you. And Mr. Mark Marshall.
My name is Mark Marshall. I'm an assistant United States attorney for the Western District of Texas. I'm a federal prosecutor. My job is to help interdict and prosecute individuals bring this stuff into our country, this poison into our country. You all may have heard last year we seized tons of fentanyl. We had enough for 388 million dosage units in the Texas area. If you haven't done math recently, that's every man, woman, and child in the country. That's a lot of fentanyl. I work on the prosecution end, but early on, and I've done a dozen opioid death cases and a dozen other prosecutions along those lines with Tyson and others. Early on, we realized that I'm not the answer. I'm the tail end of it. I'm prosecuting people we catch. What we need to catch are young people up front. Educate them and tell them what's going to happen. Everything from the overdose to the danger of sharing pills to the danger of even trying something you don't know what is. That's why we're here, that's why my office is here, and that's why we're working with all the people here in this room to try and educate everybody we can.
Thank you. And Deputy Mark Andrews.
I'm Deputy Mark Andrews with the Hayes County Sheriff's Office. I've been in law enforcement or a police officer for about 22 years. And I'll say that I did not know a whole lot about fentanyl and what it can do a few years ago. But in the summer of 2022, when we lost our 5 students out of the same school district in Hayes County, our sheriff called myself and a coworker upstairs and said, "You two are going to learn everything you can possibly learn about fentanyl and go tell as many people as you can about fentanyl." So since the summer of 2022, we've partnered with Janelle and the Forever 15 Project, and we wrote a presentation that we do nationwide. At first, I did that because I was asked to by my boss. And then it became very personal. I have a younger brother that recently got out of prison because he suffers from addiction. So I'm very, very close to someone in my family. I'm not immune. My family's not immune to addiction and the problems that we all experience, right? My brother has since fallen off the wagon and gone back to methamphetamines. So I struggle with educating kids and educating my brother and wrestling with how do I do that? So since then, I found that this is probably my most rewarding part of my job is going to talk to our kids and communities that will listen to us and tell them everything we know about fentanyl. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Sheriff Gleason.
Good evening. My name is Mike Gleason. I'm the elected sheriff of Williamson County. I kind of got thrown to the wolves, so to speak, with this. I wear very many hats. Some people that will remain nameless down at the end of the table came into my office one day and challenged me. And so now we wear very many hats in the fentanyl world with Operation 360 and numerous 501c3s that we take money from drug dealers that we seize, and through the judiciary that money is awarded back to us, and I give it back to the community in the form of cash so they can fund these programs, because these drug dealers took our money, took our kids, took our family members, so now we're giving the money back to the victims. So having said that, we fund a lot of programs. I also assign my deputies to the various task force, United States Marshals, the DEA, Secret Service, FBI, for this poison, this scourge of fentanyl. And the reason this is so important is because we've now found a way where nobody can tell us no. We'll prosecute you, we'll save you, we'll rehab you, we'll educate you, and we're wearing all those hats. And I have somebody involved in every one of those milk stools is kind of what we've said we're calling this. And so that way, if I have to come out to your house and this is the 5th time we've saved you with Narcan, we'll get you help. If you got to give me your drug dealer to keep from going to jail, I'll do that. If you want help, I will have someone scholarship you for your rehab. You don't have to come up with the $30,000 a month that it takes to get these programs. You cannot say no to us anymore, and that's what we're finally working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Dr. Robert Vizzetti.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. My name is Bob Vizzetti. I'm a pediatric emergency medicine physician here at Dell Children's. And along with Dr. Remick and my other colleagues in the emergency department, we're the folks that, if you are fortunate enough to make it to the emergency department, you will see. Sadly, that is not always the case, and it is getting worse, actually. I finished my pediatric residency 23 years ago. I finished my pediatric emergency medicine fellowship 20 years ago. And I've seen a lot, and not much scares me. I have 5 children, and I've survived teenage years. Our oldest is 26. I've survived the teen years and all the drama that goes with that. So I like to think of myself as pretty tough, but this scares me. And the reason it scares me is because there's not a whole lot I can do about it in the ED necessarily. I rely a lot on first responders. They're the folks that get there, and they're the folks that are getting Narcan on board and saving lives and getting that person to the emergency department if possible, where then I can do what I have to do and hopefully take care of that person. But it's scary. And I think that it's one of these things where people don't realize how scary it actually is. I think we talk about it, but it is. And for an emergency medicine physician to look at that and go, I see people without their fingers, and that doesn't scare me. I see people that are burned. I see people in bad traumas, bad car wrecks, bad disease. But this is the one thing that will keep me up at night. So thank you all for being here, and I appreciate the panel being here too.
And Jordan Rico, thank you.
Hey y'all, I am a licensed social worker and I am the staff social worker at Round Rock ISD. I'm here to talk about mental health and community resources tonight.
Well, thank you for stepping in for us last minute. Well, I'd like to kick it off with some questions for Janelle and Becky. We've heard obviously from about a lot of children who've lost their lives to this, and a lot of parents who've lost their children to this. And Wondering if you could share with us how you would go about starting a conversation with your child about fentanyl.
Okay. So in our case, after my son Noah passed away, I still had little ones at home. They were at the time 4, 1, and 15 days. When we got home at 5 o'clock in the morning from the scene, we knew that Jolene, our 4-year-old, was gonna wake up soon, want to go to church, you know. And I'm the type of parent who's always been very blunt with my children, very open, very honest, and she woke us up, ready to go to church, and I was sad. And she wanted to know why I was crying, why I was sad. So, being the open and honest mom that I am, we sat her down and we just told her what happened to her brother. And I told her like this: Mommy is sad because Noah now lives with Jesus. Noah died last night because he ate some poison. She was sad. I don't really think she knew. She couldn't really process it yet. But Jolene is 6 now. Jolene travels with me because I homeschool her, so she sees all my presentations. Jolene understands now, and we still have that conversation today. But now she knows it's fentanyl. So now she can say the word fentanyl. Now she tells her siblings, who are now 3 and 18 months, what fentanyl is, and not to eat any candy that any friends may try to give them or anything they see on the ground, because it could have poison in it. So I would say to you, just be open and honest. You know your children better than anybody, so you know how to approach them, what verbiage to use, what tone. Experimenting is not like we used to could do in our days, right? You cannot experiment anymore. And kids are not making bad decisions. Kids are making impulsive decisions because that's what kids do. So, you know, you're going to talk to your kindergartner different than you're going to talk to your high schooler, but it's all going to have the same message. If mommy, your doctor, or your nurse did not give it to you, you do not take it. I don't know if you have something to say.
Just to add to that, Cameron had an older sibling who was away at college, so my conversations obviously were a lot different. But one thing to have conversations with your kids, but not vomit all the information at once. You got to do it in small doses, and as Janelle said, age appropriately, of course. But these kids can understand and process a lot more than you think they can, even at an elementary level. So to go the route of not necessarily into detail about the drug and how it works and all that, just don't take anything from strangers, and don't take anything even from a friend if it's not mom or dad giving it to you. Another thing that's really important is it's not a one and done conversation. It needs to be a conversation that happens all the time. Table topics. Tell me what you learned today about fentanyl. Give them homework on it. Say, go do some research and come back to me and report this. If your kids, like Cameron, when I talked to him, rolled the eyes all the time, yeah, we've already talked about this. give them permission to talk to other people. Give them permission to talk to their best friend's parents, because a lot of times it's not easy to talk to your parents about stuff. When I grew up, it was awkward to talk to my parents about stuff. Give your kids permission to talk to their best friend's parents. And they could open up some conversations, then they come home and start opening up a little bit to you about it. Another thing is have them attend these type of presentations with you. Talk to your school districts or your kids' schools about bringing in presentations, because if they hear it, they're more than likely at some point going to talk to you about it. Or if you know they had that presentation, you can ask them about it. It's never easy to just out of the blue start those conversations. So maybe bring up a time how you were feeling as a kid. And quite honestly, a lot of this boils down to mental health. And I think that's something that all of you guys probably realize. Cameron struggled. He had depression and anxiety and, of course, all the stressors that are added to kids these days. Cameron unfortunately chose to go down an unhealthy coping path. And so realizing what your kids are going through, normalizing what they're going through, given circumstances of how you guys coped with it as kids, can help them navigate those paths. But, and I want to make it really clear too, we're not talking about only those who have substance abuse or addiction issues. I know plenty of parents, and I'm sure Janelle does too, sadly through this process we've met, who have lost kids first time ever out experimenting. I know a mom who lost 2 sons at one graduation party because they were having fun experimenting, and her 2 sons are gone. It's not about somebody already in active addiction always. So yes, more than likely it's somebody who has been using, but that's not the only case. So.
One follow-up question for you both. Sometimes kids will start texting back and forth with friends, maybe about drugs and using perhaps emojis or things to that nature. Can you speak to what a parent might recognize if they're starting to have conversations about these drugs?
Sure. So texting, whether it's texting through your phone or texting through an app or whatever the case may be, dealers and providers of these substances are carrying on full-blown conversations online without even texting a word. They're using emojis, and at my table out here, a Change for Cam table, I have a DEA publication that shows what those emojis are, and that's not an exhaustive list, sadly. But they're using emojis that say where they're going to be, how much they have, the potency of what they have. It's a sad realization when you have to memorize what those emojis are. And if you see them on your kid's phone, you need to question it. And I want to say boldly here, now is not the time to be your kid's best friend. Do not avoid having those tough conversations because you think your kid's going to be mad if their phone gets taken away. You've got to be in your kid's business. You've got to know their passcodes to their phones. You've got to have a regular check-in with them and look at those things, because there are predators out there everywhere sending these emojis just to try to lure them in. Your kid might be innocently just seeing this stuff and eventually one day going, I'll try that. Somebody at school told me I tried one of those. I'll try that. So, and I'm sure Tyson can tell you as a former DEA agent that those emojis change. So don't just know what's on that list out there right now. Check back and see what those new emojis are, because they know they need to change them, right? Because law enforcement's onto them. So.
Thank you for that. I'd like to turn it to Dr. Vizzetti for a minute. If you could speak a little bit to what is fentanyl? Why is it dangerous? Tell us a little bit more about this poison.
Yes. Better? Yeah, okay. So fentanyl is, first of all, it's a synthetic medication, meaning it's made, right? The closest sort of natural thing that you would find that's out in nature is natural opioids. So things that are found from poppy plants, right, to make opium. But fentanyl's manufactured The reason it's dangerous, and first I'll say, fentanyl is a medication that we use in the hospital all the time. If you've had surgery, we were just talking about this earlier, you've probably had fentanyl. If a child comes to the emergency department, they have a broken arm, and we're going to give them some medication to allow us to do the x-rays, we actually use some fentanyl. It's a spray that we use in the nose. But it's dose regulated. I know how much to give you. And therein lies the problem with fentanyl, is that fentanyl, as I think everyone here is aware, but in case you weren't, is an extremely powerful opioid. On average, about 100 or so more times powerful than morphine. Everyone thinks morphine's a standard. Morphine's nothing. Fentanyl is the big pain med. And the problem with that is what we call the therapeutic window, the amount that is safe to give someone to control their pain, is very, very narrow. In medicine, I think everyone knows we dose our medications on milligrams, how many milligrams of something, right? Fentanyl is dosed in micrograms. And in case you're wondering, 1 microgram is 0.001 milligrams. Do the math. So what that means is, if you take, on average, an average fatal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams of fentanyl. That's enough. About 10 to 15 grains of salt, enough to fit most of it on the tip of a pencil. Tiny, tiny amount. The other thing that's dangerous about fentanyl is that when it's mixed up in a place that is not a drug manufacturer, that is supplying hospitals and that sort of thing, you don't know how it's being mixed or what it's being mixed with. And for that matter, fentanyl leaves residue. So if you are in a place where it's being made up and you walk in and you cough or breathe or whatever, you can get exposed to that. We were talking about that earlier, that agents, law enforcement, have been exposed to it just in the process of conducting a raid and collecting evidence. So people are very sensitive to it. The way it works, it binds to pain receptors very quickly in your body and produces its effects. And it's essentially undetectable. You can, with toxicology screens, of course, but fentanyl has no taste, fentanyl has no odor, it has nothing like that. You can't, if you drink Dimetap, you can tell it's great, it tastes good. You drink your Dimetap, I took Dimetap, Fentanyl, though, I can put in Dimetap and you have no idea I've done that. So it's easy to mask and very easy to hide and incredibly powerful.
So is there any way to recognize if there's fentanyl in a pill?
Sure. So in a pill, not initially. After you take it, sure, there's symptoms, but can you look at a pill, can you look at a liquid and say, there's no fentanyl in here? Nope, absolutely not. You have no idea what's in there. After you take the fentanyl, you can certainly have effects from that. So fentanyl, like most opioids, will suppress your respiratory drive, so your breathing slows down. If you take enough of it, your breathing will stop. It'll slow your heart rate and drop your blood pressure. If you take enough of it, or a fatal dose, it will stop those too. People with fentanyl that don't have an immediate reaction from it, such as you take enough, it's a fatal dose, are very somnolent, they're sleepy, they're out of it, their pupils are pinpoint, and they're really, really slow when they're speaking, if they're able to talk at all. The problem is that's a small dose of fentanyl. If you take an unknown dose or a fatal dose, you won't have any of those symptoms because it will be too late to have any of that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the way to maybe recognize an overdose is someone who's very tired or someone who's gotten to a point where they've stopped breathing.
Right. So if a classic that we'll get a report from EMS as they're bringing someone into the ED is a person found down. In schools, almost always it's a bathroom or someplace out of the way at school. We found a patient on the floor, not breathing, not responsive, blue very often. If they get to them in time, you can use Narcan and try to reverse the effects of fentanyl. And if that's successful, then we'll hear them coming in with the patient.
So if anyone here in this audience were to find someone who they suspect had an overdose event, what should they do?
First thing, immediately call 911. First thing you need to do. The second thing, if you suspect an opioid overdose, and even if you don't, you can administer Narcan. Now, the thing about Narcan is Narcan does not, it's not a miracle drug in the sense that if your heart has stopped, if your breathing has stopped, say for 5 minutes, it's very likely Narcan may not do a whole lot for you. You know, if you unfortunately have passed away from a fentanyl overdose, I can give you Narcan all day long, nothing's gonna happen. Narcan's designed to prevent you from getting to that point. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't give it. You can certainly give it, particularly if they have a pulse, give the Narcan. Narcan works by, it's actually faster than fentanyl. It binds the receptors that fentanyl does very, very quickly. And prevents fentanyl from binding to those receptors in your body, thus not producing symptoms and ideally reversing the symptoms you have already. So if you give Narcan to someone who's had an opioid overdose, very quickly, they will wake up. And they literally wake up when they're talking. Yes, ma'am.
So when you say give it to them very quickly, what's that window? How long do you have?
Not much. Well, that depends. So it depends on the amount of fentanyl you've taken. It depends if you've taken other substances too, and it depends on the size of the person. And metabolism is different for everybody, but in general, first several minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you're lucky. If you're breathing and you have a pulse, then you still have the opportunity to give it. If your pulse has stopped, then you certainly would administer Narcan, CPR, that kind of thing.
So it kind of, the drug takes over very quickly then?
Very quickly.
Depending on how much you take and your weight?
Correct. I mean, if you find someone who's sustained an overdose and it's an hour later, Narcan's not going to work. Very unlikely. But once you give it, typically within several minutes, that person just all of a sudden, anyone who's given it, that person just says, hey, what happened? They're confused. They have no idea what happened. The problem with Narcan, though, is that Narcan eventually wears off, and depending how much you've taken, you will go right back into an overdose situation again. So you find someone out from their overdose, you give Narcan, they wake up. It's not uncommon, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, even an hour or so later, they go back into the overdose state again, because the body has to metabolize all that fentanyl. So when that happens, we give Narcan again and again and again and again. My personal record for giving Narcan was 12 times, because you'd wear off. And Narcan doesn't stay in the body very long, so it will go out eventually. And yes, ma'am.
How long does it take for the effects of fentanyl
To kick in? Great question. It also depends on how much you give, the route you give it. So fentanyl can be given in a variety of ways. You can inject it. You can, there's a patch form of it too. I had a patient years ago when I was a resident that was brought in. It was a baby, actually, that was brought to the ICU for not breathing. And not sure how this was missed, but we turned the baby over. He had 4 patches on his back. And these patches, a very well-meaning, well-intentioned relative, the baby was having a cough, and she told the mom this would stop the coughing, which it did. But these patches were brought in from another country, and they were pretty heavily dosed patches. So anyway, it really depends how much you took in the route. In general, usually within 10, 15 minutes, fentanyl typically kicks in, on average.
And there have been some reported very high doses, high potency. And Mr. Hodges, I'd like to turn maybe the next few questions to you. If you could maybe speak to the current state of the fentanyl crisis, and maybe if you could provide some information for this region that you are aware of, including false labeling, dosing, appearance, why they're happening, and the like.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and kind of start at the national level and give you some numbers, and then from there we'll come down to where we are here locally. Unfortunately, these numbers are really big. They're kind of large to understand the full extent of what we're dealing with. But so last year, 2023, DEA seized 78.4 million, 78 million fake fentanyl pills, or fentanyl-laced pills, fake pills. In addition to the pills, seized 12,000 pounds of fentanyl. Now, just to give you an example, 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds, is enough to kill about 500,000 people. Okay? This year, in 2024, in just the few months we've had in 2024, DEA has already seized over almost 12 million fentanyl pills. 12 million in just a few months. Additionally, DEA has seized 730 pounds of fentanyl powder. To put that into perspective, 41 million people would have died if they had taken that amount of fentanyl. 41 million people. Now, how big is 41 million people? That's Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Arkansas. Everyone in those 5 states could potentially have died from this amount of fentanyl. And that's just in the first few months of this year. Now, why are these numbers important? Well, we want to make sure we get these numbers out so you also understand that 7 out of 10 pills that DEA has seized and analyzed, 7 out of 10, 70%, contain a potentially fatal dose of fentanyl. 7 out of 10. This is not Russian roulette anymore. In Russian roulette, at least you have some odds of success, or what we would consider success. At 7 out of 10, you have no chance. You have no chance. So we have to explain to our kids what we're dealing with. To bring that down a little bit locally, in Hays County, right now, through 2023 and into 2024, we're seeing some of the highest numbers of overdose deaths that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. Our age ranges in Hays County right now typically start at about age 15 and go to 20. Our spike, where we see it on the graph, is at age 17. For some reason, we're having the highest number of overdoses at age 17 in Hays County. Our youngest victim, sadly, is 14 years old. We've had 2 of them in the past year. If we move over to Williamson County, it's slightly different. Our age range goes up just a little bit. We move into the 18 to about 25-year-old range. And then there's even, we even have a higher concentration at the 25 to 35, 40-year-old range. So it's not just our teens that we have to be concerned about. It's also that 30-year-old bricklayer. It's that college kid that is out on his own for the first time, or her own for the first time. That's the ones that we really have to concentrate on going forward. And to me, the numbers are just unbelievable. To kind of give you an example, you know, of course, when we love percentages, you know, we love to throw that out. Between 2021 and 2022, there was a 107% increase. That means over double the number of deaths in Travis County alone. If we expand that between 2020 and 2022, it's a 600% increase in the number of overdose deaths. That's why we created this task force. The reason we call it Operation 360 is because we're taking a 360-degree approach to this. We're trying to cover this from as many different angles as we can cover it. We have moms that are going to sit down with you and tell you to get a hold of your child. However you have to get a hold of your child, you get a hold of your child and you tell them, this is not to be trifled with. Don't even start it. It's not worth it. Mark Marshall's going to tell you right here in just a few minutes, I'm sure, if you've got an older adult, whatever it takes, you're still a parent. You're still a parent, you're still a grandparent, you may be a brother, a sister, an aunt, uncle, it doesn't matter. You've got to get a hold of that person and let them know that this stuff is, it's not just dangerous. This stuff is absolutely the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in 35 years of law enforcement, bar none, bar none. So with that, I'm sorry I kind of rambled.
Thank you. That was really important information. Mr. Marshall, would you mind commenting after that? If someone were to, suspect that a friend or a family member is using drugs or fentanyl, will they get in trouble if they report it? Can you speak to the process a little bit around that?
No. In fact, you ought to get in trouble if you don't report it. If you're a friend, a good friend, who cares about that individual, you tell people. Tell your parents. They can help. Tell a trusted teacher. Tell a doctor. Tell a nurse. Tell anybody, but tell someone. Because the individual is out there a lot of them are trying to self-medicate for issues they have, be they psychiatric, psychological, or physical, medical. And they don't really know what they're getting. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you're not going to get in trouble for trying to help somebody. Always, always try and help your friends, even if they're not your friend. I mean, you guys in high school, you know who's got stuff. You know where to get it. Tell somebody. Nobody's going to dime you out. Nobody's going to narc on you. Nobody's going to say, hey, he said this, that, or the other thing. In fact, we'll do the opposite. We'll go out of our way to make sure the sources of that information are protected, because we don't want to blow them back on anybody who's trying to help a friend. So tell somebody.
And what if, hypothetically, you're at a party and you see this happening and you call to report it? Are you going to get in trouble?
No, absolutely not. Same. I mean, you're doing a public service. At parties, I've seen them in a bowl. These are crime scenes afterwards. But I've seen tabs in a bowl that people are sharing. You see something like that, it's a problem. Call somebody. Again, call a parent. Call a trusted individual. Call anybody. Call 911. Tell them what's going on. We got to get the information out, and that's how you save lives. One thing Tyson was talking about a little bit is we're talking about pills, right? They're not fentanyl pills. They're not marketed as fentanyl pills. They're marketed as oxycodone, OxyContin, Xanax, you name it. They're marketed as different drugs that people might want. They might want Adderall. The biggest problem I've seen down at the universities and college campuses are guys that want to stay awake for exams. Hey, I'll pop an Adderall. Well, guess what? 7 or 8 out of 10 of those Adderall tabs have fentanyl in them. That's not what you're looking for. They're not necessarily an addict. They may not have ever done it again, but it's going to kill them, just like it would kill anybody else. Same thing with pain meds. I see plenty of people out there who get an injury. The docs quite appropriately say, no more pain meds. We're going to put you in rehab. We're going to put you in PT. We're going to do whatever we can to help you with that injury. And people want to self-medicate. So they go on the web. They go on the dark web. They try and pull up OxyContin or oxycodone. If it's on the dark web, right now, 8 out of 10 of those contain a fatal dose of fentanyl. You don't want it. It's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt you badly. And we can show you the photos of what they look like. Yes, ma'am.
Where is it coming in from?
80% of it's coming from Mexico right now. Some of it's coming from China, some of it's coming through Canada. But in the last set of stats I read, about 80% of it, of the counterfeit pills, are coming up out of Mexico.
Stupid question, are we making it local here like in Williamson County?
I'm sorry?
Are we making it local here?
Yes, ma'am. The powder fentanyl that Tyson was talking about earlier is coming over. Very few people want to just get fentanyl powder. For lack of a better word, entrepreneurs in the drug world are taking that fentanyl powder, combining it with binders, getting tableting machines, and making their own tablets. And they can charge $20, $30 a tab for these things, and that fentanyl's cheap. They've got probably 1,000% profit margin on what they're doing. That's why they're doing it. That's the same problem with the tabs coming over from Mexico. That stuff is cheap. It's incredibly inexpensive to make. And the last thing I'll pontificate on for this point is you don't know what's in that tablet. You have no clue. You know, that's a Xanax. Okay, great. Some guy sitting in a lab, and when I say lab, I'm talking about a shed in somebody's backyard in Guanajuato, is sitting there with a big bucket mixing it. That is not Merck. They are not scientifically engineering it so that they get the same dose in every tablet. There's no quality control, and quite frankly, they could care less. I had a chemist that I work with up in DC, because when I do cases, I'm talking 250,000 tabs at a time, are the kind of guys I prosecute. And we can only do representative samples of those tablets when they come over in those quantities, because it would take a year to test all those tablets. So we do a representative sample and go to court on that, which is perfectly legal, and we'll get people on it. But this guy thought, you know, I'm gonna try and find out what's going on. He had a pack of 100, and he had some extra time on his hands. So he went ahead and tested all 100. And those 100 tablets, the fentanyl concentration ranged from 0 to 3.5, 4 milligrams. You're dead, 3.5, 4 milligrams. All in the same pack, all from the same source.
One single person was courageous enough to say something. So we try to give the kids the power to be courageous and say something, especially if it comes to saving someone's life, right? So we tell them, we've heard it all. We've heard snitches get stitches. We've heard how, you might be labeled as a narc or a tattletale. We're not asking you to be tattletales. We're asking you to save someone's life. Use these anonymous reporting apps. In Hays County, we have P3, which is the Campus Crime Stoppers and Crime Stoppers app, which is 100% anonymous. And we tell the kids that if you make a tip on one of these applications, the only way anybody's going to know that you said something is if you go tell somebody you said something. Otherwise, it just looks like a bunch of numbers to us. We don't know. And then we'll take it from there and work it from there. But we try to give the kids the power to save somebody, not tell on somebody. So that's kind of what we tell the kids.
Maybe a little bit later, we can have you share some more about the P3 apps and where they can find those. That would be terrific. Can you also explain what the rules are on Narcan availability and or use on school campuses?
Yeah, so we contacted one of the administrators on the way up just to clarify this. In Hays County, I'll speak specifically to Hays ISD, our students are not allowed to have medication of any kind on the campus. All their medication has to be checked into the nurse's station, and I think that's probably similar on most campuses. But our schools do have Narcan, and they are on campus. So the rule is, if a student or a faculty member or somebody sees a student presenting those signs and symptoms of a potential drug overdose, we would call 911 and we would contact the nurse or the school resource officers on campus to deliver that Narcan. So the rule for Narcan or any medication on our school campuses is that they need to be checked in with the nurse. I don't really have an opinion, but we don't want our students walking around with any medication that they can just take whenever they want, right? So that's the rules as far as the use of Narcan on a school campus. It is there. All of our campuses have Narcan on it. So it can be there relatively quickly within the matter of seconds. So that's the rules of that. Can I speak to the social media thing just real quick?
Please, go right ahead.
When I do this presentation for parents, I tell our parents that if you pay for your child's cell phone, that is not your child's cell phone. That is your cell phone. You need to be going through that cell phone because social media is the superhighway. It is a superhighway for sex trafficking, human trafficking, narcotics, weapons, and anything else you want to get. It is almost exclusively dealt through social media. It is imperative that as parents, We understand what Snapchat does, Telegram, Signal, Roblox, all the apps that these kids have. If you pay that cell phone bill, you need to know what's on that cell phone. So I just wanted to get that said. It's important to me. So,
Thank you for
anyway,
that.
That's it. Oh, is there a question?
There's a
Yes, ma'am.
question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the suggestions that I hear a lot is to start allowing students to have access to administer Narcan because waiting for a nurse takes too long. I'm interested for the law enforcement perspective on that particular idea.
I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I will say this. When we started doing these presentations in 2022, I struggled with talking to students about Narcan because it was becoming their designated driver. So our students felt like if they had Narcan, it would be safe to experiment with a drug. So I don't want to talk about what a district might do or what the rules on campus is. We advocate for parents and households to have Narcan available. It may not be your kid, right, that experiences that. So have Narcan available, know how to use it, know all that kind of stuff. I don't really have an opinion about allowing our students to walk around with Narcan. So I don't want to answer that specifically. So, sorry.
Sheriff Gleason, would you like to respond to that or add anything to that?
We're similar as well because in the 1,124 square miles that we cover, we have Taylor ISD, Round Rock ISD, Georgetown ISD, Leander ISD, Austin ISD. Everybody's different. Some schools think of Narcan as being contraband, and any student caught with it may end up in ISS or in the principal's office. So it's all over the map. It's, in my personal opinion, it's one of the things that I feel is driving all of these ISDs to form their own ISD police department, because they don't want to follow under one subset of laws, i.e. the sheriff's office or the police department. And so having said that, the school superintendent becomes the chief of police's boss. I go into a school, I make my own decisions, and I don't mean to sound rude, I could care less what the principal says or what the school superintendent says. And so I think that's what's kind of pushing, is there's no one set of rules. And but to impact what he said, every parental relationship is different. You know, if your child has the aptitude and is has the ability to walk around with Narcan in their backpack and can save somebody's life, great. But if it's to somebody else whose child may be suffering from a mental illness or a substance abuse issue and it becomes their designated driver, we've got a horse of a different color. So,
Sheriff Gleason, if I were a teenager at home and I knew my sibling had perhaps bought some pills, how might I start a conversation with my parents about that, or what should I do?
one, you need to separate the narcotic because time is of the essence. You don't know when the person is planning on participating in the narcotic. You know, you couldn't pay me to be a teenager today. And I feel so sorry for them having all this extra pressure, but these kids now got to look at it as I'm saving my brother, sister, mother, father's life. I'm not snitching on them. I'm not taking their $20 that they spend, or they're not out $20. I'll give you the $20. They have to realize that, you know, and I think I sound like a broken record, is, you know, us growing up as adults, for those of us that are adults in here, you know, we got to learn from our mistakes. You had one too many beers, you shouldn't have done, you know, as a school of hard knocks, you get no second chance with this drug. There is no, oh, I learned my lesson, school of hard knocks, hangover the next morning. You're dead. Period. So you got to look at it as you're saving their life. It's an intervention, you know, and you have to separate from them, even if it's you going to your sibling and removing it, or telling the parents, but you have to act immediately.
And one last question. If, you know, these drug dealers, these drugs are so different and they're killing people, why do they keep selling them? Because if you take whatever it is you take, we talked about, you know, somebody has a big test, they think they're taking, you know, a Percocet or an OxyContin or whatever. If you take that drug and you die, you're of no use to that drug dealer. You're collateral damage.
You're the cost of doing business. You are never an opportunity for that drug dealer. I want to sell you something that's going to get you hooked, and then I got you for life. And I don't care if it's marijuana, Percocet, Xanax, I've got you hooked. Whatever your drug of choice is, I've got you. If you died, you were never my customer, because I'm in the business of selling fentanyl, not marijuana.
Thank you. We heard from Becky and Al a little bit about the mental illness that can exist sometimes among teenagers who choose to use a drug that perhaps is mislabeled, like we heard about Adderall, or perhaps using something that's mislabeled as Xanax. I wanted to turn it over to Jordan for a moment to speak a little bit about how you might recognize someone is dealing with a mental health issue, and what kind of resources might exist to help support substance abuse and/or addiction.
Yeah, thank you for that. When I'm looking at mental illness, I'm looking at a teenager that's going through something. I'm always looking for isolation.
Whoops.
Mental illness and substance abuse addictions, they really thrive in isolation, so I'm looking for that. If they're spending a lot of time in the room, if they're not engaging with you, if they're not talking to their friends, if their grades start slipping, I mean, that's a really easy way to know, like, something is going on here. So I'm looking for those clues. I'm trying to not pressure them to talk to me. What am I doing wrong here, y'all? I'm not trying to pressure them to talk to me, but I am trying to stay in their orbit. I am trying to pay attention to the social media, the phone usage, what's going on there. There are a lot of resources here in Austin County, in Austin and Travis County and the counties around it. We're very lucky and blessed in that way. So the first thing that I would start off with is 211texas.org, or you can just pick up your phone and call 211. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. It's confidential, it's free. They can connect you to resources for all sorts of issues, not just mental illness or mental health. It can be housing, it can be food assistance. I also am a big fan of the United Way here in Austin, and they have a wonderful app that I use all the time, a website called Connect ATX. It's through their website, you can go on there. They have resources for everything that you could possibly imagine. Last week I searched my zip code and there was almost 4,000 programs for housing, food, mental health, substance use treatment. And I would also steer people towards OSAR. There's actually Bluebonnet Trails Community Services out there. And OSAR is a program through the government that's outreach, screening, assessment, and referrals. They're great for that as well. And I would also direct people to Integral Care or LifeWorks. LifeWorks is a nonprofit that works with youth exclusively, and families and adults, but they have a lot of resources for youth and adolescents.
And if you suspect, based on some of these triggers you're speaking about, so isolation or slipping grades, and you try to start the conversation and they get upset, what do you do?
I think that's where we're leading with empathy and care. I think if I went around and asked somebody if they could remember a time in their childhood where they were really embarrassed and they felt shame from their parents, you could probably give me a really clear recollection of what happened. So we're really trying to avoid that shame. Shame can be really good sometimes, like if you hit your sibling in the mouth and you make them bleed and your parents shame you for that, that might be positive. But we're really trying to be empathetic and show care and love in those conversations, rather than shaming them, rather than turning it into a moral thing, like, you are such a terrible person, how dare you use that drug? We're staying curious. We're asking, what's going on? Who are you talking with? What kind of emotions are you feeling right now? Is something really stressing you out? There's a lot of anxiety. That's one of the most prevalent things that you're going to see in adolescents especially. Anxiety, depression, a lot of loneliness children are experiencing now. And the problem, I'll say, kind of off topic though, with social media is sometimes children are using social media to replicate an in-person connection, and it's not the same. It's very different. So I would if they start to get upset, take a pause. Sometimes having those really intense conversations can be really pressuring. So take a pause, ask them how they're feeling, and come back to it or switch it up. Like, let's go for a walk. Let's play with the dog. Let's bake something, eat something together. Come back to that conversation. Don't put them on the spot. Don't make it an interrogation. Just lead with empathy, and you're not going to do harm.
And then just a last question for you. Can you share with us ways that you might go about monitoring your child's social media? We see kids younger and younger having access to phones and watches and social media accounts, and there's not a shortage of devices.
I know, and there's not, every child's different, like the women at the end of the table said, and I can't give a specific recommendation or generalized tips, but I will say that I would check your router, your Wi-Fi setting. I would link accounts on the phone. There's apps that let you monitor what they're doing. And when I'm looking at the apps that they're using, I'm looking for usually three things. I'm looking for who they're talking to, what they're sending back and forth, and I'm also looking for location-based apps. I want to see if that app has their location and who can see it. And I totally agree that they are children for life, and there's a fine balance between respecting their autonomy and their identity and also keeping them safe. So if you can emphasize that I'm trying to keep you safe, I'm not trying to police you, I want to trust you, I want to join with you and work with you on how we can do that together, rather than having them feel like you're up in their business, you're controlling them. Try to bring them into that conversation so they feel like I try to give as much power as I can. How much autonomy can I give them and trust them with? And give them options as well. Don't just try to give them this is the rule, this is what I'm doing, even though I totally believe in boundaries and having those rules. Include them as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. That's very informative. At this juncture, I think we can take time to divide up into breakouts, and I think any kids who are here, we have a separate breakout session for you. So Melissa, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Remick. Yeah, I know we have some students in the room, and Dr. Fazezi has offered to take you to the best conference room in the hotel, I hear. Really the hospital. And I think we might have Mr. Rico join them as well. And so students, you guys can go workshop with them. There's some fun Post-it notes and some markers back there, and I'd love for you to, write down what you learned from tonight, what you're going to take home, what you're going to bring back to your schools and your communities, and maybe action steps you might be interested in taking. So we wanted to give you a chance to, and also feel free to ask them some questions. I know sometimes it's kind of hard to ask questions with your parents in the room. So everyone up here at the table has been vetted. They are all very safe, I promise you. Nothing's going to happen to your kids tonight. I'm not sure about tomorrow, but tonight they're all good. You're in good hands. So Dr. Vezzetti, would you like to lead the way? Thank you. And then for those of you in the room, I would love for you to kind of come a little closer to the front of the room, and maybe a few of you who are on the right side can kind of come over to the left side, and we're going to do a little workshopping as well with the rest of our panelists here. And if you have questions, now's the time to ask them. And also, I'd love for you guys to think about what you have learned tonight, what you want to do to take home to your communities as well, and how you can make an impact. I missed that. There we go. Make sure to thank our vendors. No, I missed that.
Everybody wants to get home too. We thank you so much for being here tonight. I know there must have been some great discussions that happened in the small groups. And I'd actually like to turn this moment to the audience and hear from you all. What were some of the key takeaways that you've had just up to this point? It can be from earlier during the panel discussion or some discussion points that were had during the small groups and breakouts. Is anybody willing to share just some takeaways that you've had from this? Yeah, please.
I was just gonna say the mom sharing that it was never too young to start that conversation with your kids and that there's always age-appropriate conversations, but you always start the younger the better. That's great.
Wonderful. It's never too young. And, you know, there are some Post-its and markers, and if you'd like to put any up there on the boards, we would love it because I think it'll help people to kind of walk around afterwards and see what some of those takeaways are. But certainly never starting too young. And Janelle really shared that beautifully earlier about some of those discussions and the fact that even your toddlers are beginning to speak a little bit of the language is really remarkable. And I think that is the direction so many of us know we have to go. Any other takeaways? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the importance of having access to it if there really is an overdose, and how do we go about some of the barriers, and, you know, just learning about where it is. So at least also knowing that this is the place to be able to go to ensure that you can access it, or that there's awareness, and how each of the school districts deal with that differently. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
The collaboration piece is really big for me because especially when you have, like I'm on the school board of our district and we have 43,000 students and 200 square miles. It's huge. And there tends to be, I feel like sometimes we can get siloed, like let's discuss this problem and let's discuss this problem, when even in watching a panel like this, it's not just one problem. It's a lot of them, and it's important that all of these people are working together to make sure that all of the pieces that need to be there are there. Because you can address the fentanyl aspect, but are you fully addressing it if you're not talking about mental health? Are you fully addressing it if you're not addressing how the kids are using social media and where and the things that they're going through? So the collaboration piece, I'm really grateful for y'all for addressing that because it's massive.
Thanks for that comment in particular. I mean, this problem is far bigger than any one of us or one group can handle on their own. And I do think that that's true. This panel really exemplifies that importance of collaboration, from hearing Mr. Hodges speak to the degree of the problem, how we address all of the issues related to law, hearing from parents, knowing how much this matters, and also the science and the mental health aspects. Please.
I'd like to add what she said about being siloed. In the last 5 years, I've had to really unsilo myself, and now, because of all the different people and what they represent, I sit on the Children's Advocacy Center board. I sit on the board of directors for Bluebonnet Trails. I have a jail-based competency restoration program going on in my jail. I mean, we are so far away of, if you think locking people up has worked for the last 150 years, it doesn't. We've got to get these programs in place, and we've got to help people. You know, we're starting an AOT, an outpatient program in our jail for these people who keep circulating the drain. If I don't send you out with some kind of program, some kind of task, some kind of homework, you're going to come back. But if I send you out and say, you'll stay out of jail as long as you promise to do a 12-step program, then you realize, hey, this 12-step program works. Guess what? I never see them in my jail again. So we've got to get away from just locking folks up. It doesn't work.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, takeaways, thoughts? Please.
Well, as we were discussing with Becky, who we've discussed is awesome.
Yes. We can all agree Becky is awesome.
Not just that the conversation has to start very young, but the conversation doesn't end. That it's not one conversation, it's not one lecture, it's not one me like putting up slides and then telling my daughter, you know, don't do this. It's a constant snippet, snacks, conversations to drill it in.
I love that. And we all know this as parents. It takes, what, 8 to 12 times to try the broccoli, before they try, you know. So understanding what's good for them takes hearing it a lot and really beginning to digest it and understand it. So keeping the story, keeping the conversation alive is really critical. So thanks for that, Becky. Other comments? Yeah, please.
Mr. Hodges was very informative as far as the fentanyl pills themselves, and different concentrations and the copies and so forth of the pills that they're making.
It is astounding, the depth that they go through to get these this drug into our communities, and the degree to which they're creating false labeling and really tricking us and our children. So please, Janelle, you have a comment.
I just want to add that what Hodges said here was just DEA. Just DEA. That's not your local police department, sheriff's department, border patrol. That's just DEA. So much more is still being confiscated.
Good point. Yeah.
Did you have a follow-up comment?
No, I agree 100%. It's, we tend to focus just on DEA numbers because it kind of gives a good sample across the nation, but we're only capturing maybe, I don't know, 10%, what do you think? Maybe 10, 15%. So as big a problem or as large as these numbers are on paper for us today, in reality, we're only scratching the surface. And so that's why we need you.
And most cartels factor in, just like any business person, an 8 to 10% loss. They expect to make that loss.
Yeah.
So business is good for them.
No, it's fabulous for them right now. And along the lines of that continuing conversation, you've got to have a continuing conversation because this changes almost weekly. Right now, there are 5 different synthetics out there that are enhancing fentanyl. They're different drugs. They're giving different mechanisms for delivery. They're using vape pens. They're using nebulizers, and they're using squeeze bottles to deliver these drugs. So you got to have that continuing conversation and be aware of what's out there so you can warn people down the road.
Luckily, I have a very good relationship with my son, so he's gone, or not at home, so I don't have to worry about it. But the changing aspect of it every day, he was texting his friend, and he used the term POS. And I think we all know, I go, why would you call your friend a POS? I go, how rude. He goes, no, it stands for parent over shoulder. I'm going to be honest with you, because the big guy's right behind me. And I went, like that, it changes every day.
Yes, please.
I think I have another question. I know we talked a lot about, talking to our youth, and that's so critical and important because really they are our future, right? How would someone go about talking to other adults? Because I think sometimes amongst adults we're so respectful and we're so, especially like coworkers or somebody who may be a 31-year-old or someone our own age. How do we go about bringing these critical conversations to light?
Any of our panelists, please?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're doing is not only are we going to schools, but and I'm so proud and thankful that Michelle, I'm sorry, Melissa, yeah, put together the PTA meeting today. We want to get this information to the parents and to the adults in the room. You're where the change starts, okay? We can talk to the kids all day long, and kids are going to be kids. Some will heed the call, some will understand what we're talking about, but some won't. For various reasons. Maybe it's age, maybe it's maturity level, whatever it may be. So we need to get this information to the parents and to the adults in the room, so that way we can empower those adults. We can make sure that they understand the gravity of the situation. And so we put together a series of workshops that we can take into the communities. They're part and parcel and follow the same curriculum and educational information that we have going to our students. So that way the parents understand that what we're teaching the kids or what we're talking to the kids about, the parents are also getting the same information. So you know that if you're able to have this conversation with your child, you can start the conversation. You're on the same page, at least in that respect. So we do have workshops that are available. We're going to be rolling those out and making sure that those are a little bit more consistent here in the future.
And those will help people learn how to start those conversations, parent to parent, parent to student. So we encourage everybody to take, because that's hard. And I want to knock on the door of my neighbor and say, hey, dude, your kid's got a problem here. Right. But we're teaching, or we're going to offer ways by which you can start those conversations. And hopefully if we get everybody to go to some of these workshops and realize that there are ways to talk about these things that aren't threatening, and they're not condemning you for being a bad parent. We're just saying, hey, we all got a problem. Let's see if we can work on it together, and we'll offer some ways by which you can do that in a non-threatening way.
Or you can go to work tomorrow and be like, hey, I went to this panel discussion about fentanyl. Do you know what fentanyl is? Do you have young kids? You know, this and that. You know, I heard about Cameron and I heard about Noah. Let me tell you about them. And, you know, these are some of the things I learned. But if you're talking about, like, I know my son's friend might be taking something, how do I approach his parent, right? You just approach them. Mm-hmm. If they get mad at you, you know what? At least you did your job. And now they are aware of what the situation could be in their home, you know? Go to law enforcement, report it anonymously. You know, adults can use it too.
This is kind of on topic, but not on topic a little bit. You mentioned collaboration, somebody over here did, and how it's, and how it's going to take all of us. And in one thing, like Janelle said, just approach them. What happens is, as human nature is to want to protect friendships, right? And a charge I give to students in my presentation, it's the final one I give them. I'm like, don't be afraid to lose a friend, because you could be saving their lives, and their life, sorry. It's been a long day. And what I mean by that is, if you have a friend who's struggling or going down a bad path, or you're worried about them and what they're doing, that normal human reaction is to protect that friendship, and because you don't want to lose that friend, right? You don't want them mad at you. But would you rather say something and risk losing that friendship and getting them help, or would you rather be attending their funeral? Because that's reality. Cameron's best friend, Evan, didn't expect to be speaking at his funeral at the age of 19. That's just not the normal progression of life. Same is true with adults. If you have friends that are struggling, or you know someone that you should check on because they're kind of withdrawing, check on them. Hold each other accountable, and also talk to your kids about checking on their friends if they know their friends are struggling. So it takes not just us up here talking about this issue, it takes every single one of you in this room and your kids to do that. And so I know we have a couple in the back here who are ambassadors for their high school at Georgetown High School, and they're leading the charge in their schools. And it's going to take other kids like that getting away from that stigma of, oh, you're such a goody two-shoe, or who cares? You're saving lives. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for those comments. So I think at this juncture, we're going to transition. I'd like to welcome up Michelle Jackson, who is the director of the Texas Parent-Teacher Association, and she's going to say a few words. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here and just being a part of this hard but important conversation. Thank you to all the panelists. I want to recognize the ladies who worked really hard, and I know this isn't comprehensive, but your council presidents, if y'all will stand up. So Melissa from Round Rock, you have to put your phone down and stand up. And then Karen, if you can stand up. Karen is from Hayes. Let's see, Desiree, where are you? Oh, there you are. Desiree from Leander. So these ladies worked really hard to put together an amazing panel for you. And I want to say too, so thank you to the three of you and the teams that were behind you supporting those efforts, because it's really important. This conversation started actually this past December when Texas PTA hosted a panel of our own. And it was a webinar that we did. We streamed that on Facebook. And so when you ask what you can do, they're going to share, as I understand, this recording. Our recording is out on social media as well. We had a similar makeup, but from across the state of Texas. So I would just say, if you don't know what to say or you don't know what to do, share one of these webinars. They're an hour and a half long, really informative. What many people may not know is Texas PTA at its core is an advocacy association. It's what we do. And so each one of you, just by showing up tonight, are beginning that path to advocacy. And so what I would say is we all had takeaways, but the biggest takeaway is more people than are in this room need to hear this. And so however you can share, however uncomfortable it is, if you want to share it by email, face-to-face, by phone, whatever it is, we've got to be the ones who are willing to advocate to keep our children safe. Because if you're part of PTA, it's just part of who you are. So it's part of your fiber. So that would be my challenge to you. Texas PTA, Melissa, can you go? I don't know who has oh, I have it. Sorry. It's me. No, I'm going the wrong way. Hold on. So,
That's the first.
am I doing the wrong one?
Just keep going.
Hold on. We're almost there. Okay, here it is. So, Texas PTA has a set of programs that are called Connect. These are programs in a box that anybody who has a PTA can use. That the webinar, the live stream webinar that we did on fentanyl is part of the Connect program. And one of the things that we do to facilitate conversation after showing that is we put together these sort of facilitator guides to help you have those difficult conversations moving forward. So there's a QR code up there. You can scan that. There's a resource there. Obviously, you have an amazing panel here of folks who can assist you. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew, A, who was responsible for putting this thing on and that we had a chance to celebrate them. B, that we're really proud that we were able to start this conversation and provide the resources that we have. And then I also finally wanted to thank our panelists. I have to say that, Noah's mom, Cameron's mom, there's just nothing like the courage of a mom who has lost someone who will stand up and say, I don't want you to have to go through the same thing that I did. And so I hope, if nothing else, for their sakes, for Noah and Cameron's sakes, that you will take this conversation and share it with at least one person in your life. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Tonight was an opportunity to educate our students, parents, and community on the fentanyl crisis and to share resources. I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm feeling compelled to say, I know a number of us have felt lost in our lives, and this is just one small thing we can do to share this, and maybe you'll have one less loss in your life. We hope to create a workshop to highlight education on the crisis, law enforcement, legal impacts, mental health supports, and resources. This brings value to our community. We hope that you leave here with some thoughtful next steps. Our kids are the future, and we need to do what we can to share resources of prevention and keep them as safe as possible. That's all that I have, but thank you so much for attending. I also want to thank again Michelle Jackson for being here from Texas PTA, and Don Watson, MVP of Field Service. Just raise your little hand, Dawn. And Michelle Holdren, who's also one of our directors at large for Texas PTA. We are so grateful for their support and for them taking the time to be here tonight, and thankful for what PTA is doing to try to bring this message to the forefront. We have a little token of appreciation for our panelists tonight. I'm not sure if someone magically got yours made for you, but we will definitely get it to you. We, with our councils, would love to give each of you a membership to one of the local PTAs and our councils of your choice. And also, there is a really fun little keychain. My teenager was like, "Mom, it's got a flashlight on it." So there you go. I want to thank our team, our Leander team, for putting those together. They're really great. So, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight. I think we probably could have chatted for 3 hours about this. I also would be remiss to not mention Mary Sutterquist. We happened to meet each other at a luncheon for another event that I was filling in for someone. See, you're not the only one. And I said, "Gosh, I'd really love to talk to someone at Dell about doing this." And she was like, "I can help you." And here she did. So let's give her a round of applause, please. It's not easy dealing with a bunch of PTA mamas on a mission.
But I would like to just put a plug in for this cooler of delicious ice cold water and that food. So I just want to make sure I don't want you to go home.
Oh, yes, please do. We've got waters and burgers, so take a roadie with you. Maybe take a couple, all right? If you got hungry kids at home, grab a few burgers. You know, we hope to fill the room tonight, so we planned like we could. And, you know, I'm grateful for those of you who did come, but we want to make sure we get some of those burgers to people who need them. So anyway, please don't put that in the video. I am known for making people eat, but is there any last remarks? Am I missing anything? Desiree, what did I forget? And thank you to Desiree and Karen. We have spent a lot of time together on Zoom, on phone calls, on text messages, very late at night, very early in the morning, trying to catch each other. They're incredibly busy, dedicated moms, and working hard in their communities every single day. Karen is also one of the best Southwest flight attendants you'll ever have. All right, I hope you all had a great evening. Please do take some food to go, and yeah, share this message. Thank you. We have a QR code on the table out there in the blue tablecloth. It is ready and waiting for you.